All right, this is my first podcast, so
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh, sweet, dude.
Never been on one.
This will be great.
Feel vulnerable.
You won't feel a thing.
There has got to be more than this.
Cody Duncum, thank you for
Are we on?
your time. Oh, yeah, dude. I'll do the intro afterwards, but
okay.
we'll start over.
Wow.
Okay.
Bamboozled.
Okay. Clean start. Everybody, places. Okay. Cody Duncum. Man, thanks for coming over and spending a little time with me on your first podcast you just said.
My first podcast.
It's only up from here, brother.
Back in the old house.
Yeah, man. I should say celebrated cinematographer, director, and former roommate, Cody Duncum.
That's the main accolade.
The man with whom I weathered the pandemic. Wouldn't have had it any other way. We had some good times.
Whether the tornado and the pandemic.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'll never forget that when we were standing in the kitchen trying to decide
Is it if it's real?
if it's real. Should we go under the house? And going under the house, like in the basement of our house, the only entrance to my house here is on the outside in order to get to the basement. So we have to run outside to go in. And while we were deliberating, the windows, the door,
the front and back door both blew open.
blew open, and
We were like, oh, it's real.
that's when, that was when death would have occurred, and it didn't.
But I said, where do we go? And you said to the basement. And I said, we have a basement?
That was truly surreal.
Yeah.
Getting in the car and driving around right afterwards.
Did I ever tell you, what was the guy that he works with Tim, but he's like the audio guy that works with Tim. He came over to do a recording with you for something.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. That's his handle. He's got a crazy handle because he loves omnichords, this musical instrument, omnichords of Nashville or something.
The strangest
Ross.
Yeah, that's it. The thing that was wild about that whole thing was like one day, it was literally like a couple days before the tornado, but he came over to record something with you, and I was talking to him, and he was like, yeah, man, I had like a strange. He was like, a session player broke 2 strings today during a recording. He was like, that's never happened. And he was like, something's in the air. He was like, something's going on. And then right after that was tornado and then
Pandemic.
COVID. And I was just like, Ross?
There's something about that guitar or Ross.
What else is about to happen, Ross?
Man.
Rostradamus.
This is off to a great start. Okay, well, let's talk about art a little bit and your interest in the visual side of art, which is something that I am really attracted to as one who is once removed from it. I feel like I don't have an innate ability to think visually, which is unfortunate because I too am pursuing film. So I have an uphill battle ahead of me. But were you drawn towards cinema as kind of your first outlet to express yourself artistically? Was there something before that?
Well, I mean, I do think that I've always been drawn to the visuals of stuff, which I think is why I don't know. I think early on, because I'm in Kentucky, it's like there's no movies or anything, and also when you're just a kid, you don't really know how to express what you're feeling. And I guess when you look, or at least when I look back, I'm just like, yeah, I didn't quite have the resources or the understanding to express what I was feeling, or you're a kid, but there was, all I could do was I drew a lot, and I watched a lot of movies and played a lot of video games. I think that's also why a lot of people now are interested in video games too, is just the art and design of it is also satisfying as much as the distraction is. But yeah, I think it was all from drawing. And then, in high school, I got into I worked at a movie theater, and then I got into I studied architecture for 1 year, but then I thought I was gonna be a carpenter for 4 years. Just tangibly making something was I really enjoyed that.
I mean, life is long. Who knows? You might get back there
I might go
eventually.
back. You never know. Once AI takes our jobs, I'm just, they can't chop wood. But no, I think honestly, it was one of those. I think I've told you this story too, but it was I remember when I was pretty young, asking my mom how do I do movies? And she was like, oh, that's not here. That's in California. And I was just like, where's California? She was like, not here. But I kind of just, when I got to college, and then they were just like, all right, now choose what you want to do. I was like, and then I thought about it, film, and then, there just wasn't there wasn't really the option. And then we had a class where it was like, I was woodworking again, and then I was illustration. I just didn't know what I was doing. And then we had to make like a project for a video class, or a class in visual media studies or whatever. And then it was making a film was our final project. And then I made one, and the teacher, she was like, you should go to a film school. And I was just like, that like lit a fire where I was like, God, she's right. Like I've always wanted to. And it's just like, why not at this point? Because it's just made sense, or it's always made sense to me in my head. But like, it was just like, it's pretty scary to just be like, doing something that has no, it's just ambiguous.
Is it fair to say that maybe that was the first in memory experience of an adult or someone in a position of authority saying like, this is a thing that's possible?
Yes.
Like, because your mom was like,
no,
oh, that's not for you.
And my entire family, they were just like, well, what's that career look like? And I was like, I also don't know.
Yeah.
Because there's no frame of reference for it where I grew up.
Yeah, your parents or your dad, I'm sure your family has no idea what you do.
All my family are teachers mostly. So that's like, they could offer a lot of insight on teaching, but.
So did you go to film school?
Yeah, I went to Western.
Western, yeah.
Yeah.
But were you going to Western already?
No, I was at UK, and then I went to Western, and then down here to Nashville.
Straight from there. And then did you immediately start finding work, and how did you do that? And I mean, I guess I should say part of one of the interests in, I think for some people listening to this, people are interested in like, how do you go from like, oh, I want to do something and have no connections, to now I'm actively doing it?
I kind of, when I got here, I mean, I like immediately just like, I got a job at, coffee shop, and like, I hit a wall one day where I was just like, how do I? Because I tried to go around to like production companies and agencies and like try to get like a job or something, or just see what that looked like. And they were just like, we don't do that. And then I went to, I went to this place too. And I walked in, and they were like, I was like, where, how do I get to the offices for this place? And they were like, oh, it's in the elevator. You go up. And I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, you have to have a card. It won't let you up. And I was like, oh, okay. And I still got in the elevator, and I just like hit the number, and it closed and did not open back up. And I was just couldn't, and I was like, oh God. And then like it dropped and it went down, and I was just like, God, I'm being detained.
And then holding still.
and then it opened up, and I went outside, and I looked both ways, and there was just these long tunnels. And I was like, where am I? And this guy got on the elevator, and he was like, are you lost? And I was like, yeah, I'm looking for this place. And he was like, oh, I work there. And then he was like, yeah, I'll take you up there. And he like took me up. So it worked out.
Yeah.
But I just being stupid and like 24 years old and being like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's the difference though between finding your way and not, is being stupid.
Yeah, but
getting in the elevator instead.
But then whenever I started thinking smarter about it, I like went to, I was listening to like bands on Spotify, and like I would go to their Facebook or Spotify info page, and then just like find their emails or whatever. And I shot like 100 bands emails, just being like, I'll do a video for free. Like, give me a shot. And there were only 2 that reached back, and I worked with them a few times, and I feel like that's how I got started doing like music video, getting reps in that world.
Did you have your own camera then? What did you have?
I had like the first Blackmagic model.
Oh yeah,
which was already obsolete.
The Ursa?
No, not the Ursa. It was this like little lunchbox thing that was like, it looks like a little lunchbox. And I still have that camera, and I still love the image that it had. Like it's micro Four Thirds sensor and everything. Like it's just like completely obsolete, but I still love it.
Nice. And I mean, more importantly, it got you jobs.
Yeah.
So you probably had to invest in, that was an investment in yourself.
Yeah, in college, because I knew that I was like about to graduate, and I was like, well, I need a camera to, because like at least for me just to work with, so at the minimum. So
at what point did you realize that, like, I'm sure that there was a number of months or maybe a year or so where you were like kept your part-time job and you were like shooting, and then there was a moment where you're like, this job is getting in the way.
Yeah, well, they got to me first.
They beat you to it.
They fired me, rightly so. I mean, I'm a horrible employee. And like,
yeah, can relate.
What'd you say?
I said I can relate.
Can relate. I just like working at the movie theater and then working it everywhere I've always just had the mindset of like, this is not my final stop. And like, I still did the work, but it was very unenthusiastic.
Don't you have that story about when you were working at the movie theater and they gave you like the training for the shooter?
Oh yeah. Well, I was at the movie theater during like prime like theater shooting era where
Batman.
Like, it was right
Colorado.
after Batman, and like, I mean, people, because we used to like check the bags of the door and be like, make sure you don't have like candy or anything. And then like, then we checked it and people would be like, I have candy in here. And I'd be like, ma'am, we're looking for guns. We're not looking for like, you can keep the candy. But yeah, like when they gave us the training, she was like, Cody, you're going to have to like, I was box office because I intentionally messed up enough to do the easiest job, which was box office. And then she was like, your job as the box office person is to usher people out the door and let them know that the doors are open if there's a shooter. And I was like, I will not be doing that. I was like, I will be in the safe room back here or running. Like, I don't care about Regal that much.
So anyway, that's a testament to your poor stature as an employee.
So I got fired from that coffee shop job, and then because it was like, honestly, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I was like 1 foot into like, still 1 foot in the 9 to 5, but then like it was getting in the way of this, what I could be devoting to a like freelance life. And like, honestly, like whenever I did get fired, it was like, I just like put all the emphasis into freelance, and then in my head, and I still have this thought where I'm just like, I'm going to keep doing freelance until it runs out. And because, that first year I was just like, I might have to get a real job again. Mm-hmm. And then I just never did. Mm-hmm. And I think that the threat of having a real job like kept me going.
Yeah. Highly motivating.
Yes.
No, I get it. And so you never, it's not like you set out to be a music video director.
No.
That's just been a means to an end. And what's the end?
I mean, hopefully movies.
Yeah.
But
writing, directing, or DPing.
I don't know. I mean, ideally it would be writing and directing, but I enjoy doing cinematography, but I also have like, I don't know. It feels like I feel way less inspired by it than I have before, or like whenever I came up into it. Because I think in film school, like I have conversations about people like this all the time, because at Western right now, they were like, everybody wants to be a cinematographer. Like no one's really wanting to do other things. And like, they were just like, we have a bunch of cinematographers, people that want to do cinematography. And I was thinking about why that was. And it's like, I think that it's just like the most tangible way to like see growth, or like see like something that you can just like look at and be like, I can put my hands on like the lights and the camera, and like I know how to make it like work. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just like there's nothing like ambiguous about it really, which is why I've talked to people who are like ACs, and I'm like, would you ever want a DP? And they're like, no, it's too like it's too they like the hit or miss aspect of like focus, where it's like you either hit focus or you don't.
Yeah.
And it's like that's way less stressful, or something they like doing more than like this like
Subjective.
Something as abstract as like, does this look good?
Right.
And it's like, who's to say?
Yeah.
Like
so you could say like maybe there's a continuum. Maybe I should say too, for the uninitiated, DP means director of photography. So that's the person on a film set who's in charge of camera. They may be holding the camera on a small crew, but they also, maybe for a larger project, they'll just be at the head of the camera department. And then AC is first AC would be assistant camera. And that person is usually responsible for pulling focus. So on a film set and a big camera op, the person holding the camera and pointing the camera is not the person focusing the lens. That's a separate job. So the first AC is the person who's responsible for making sure everything is crisp. And so maybe I could say that I wonder if we could propose a continuum of objective evaluation. In like the first AC, it's like, is it in focus? Is it not? Cool, I did my job.
Yeah.
The DP is like, does this look good? Does it not? Does it not?
Does it fit the story? Does it align with like what everybody else is trying to do?
Yeah. Which is some subjectivity, but then like the director is like, is this story touching human hearts?
Sure, yeah.
Way harder.
That's way harder,
Yeah.
which is why, I get why it's scary to be like trying to make some like, you can't tell if it's, and you can't even tell either if like what people even think about it, even after they've seen it.
Yeah, because they won't tell you if they
won't
didn't
tell
like
you.
it.
Yeah. So you're still always going to be like, yeah, but I bet they hated it.
Yeah. Unless you have
all these trophies in front of you.
No, even then it's just like, I don't know, it's all political. All that shit is political.
Yeah.
But okay, so now when I first met you, it seemed like you were just like writer director all the way. And now you've kind of been like a little, maybe not.
No, I'm like, I think I know that writer director is what I want to do, but it's like, it's also like, I love shooting. Like I love doing, and I think if I had like gotten into like, I'm just at a crossroads with it. Cause like, I've just been in this mindset for so long, and now I'm kind of like changing it a little bit.
Well, let's take a step back from the general and talk about a particular, which is more an opportunity for me to reminisce on some good times had recently, which is when you shot a music video for me for Crow Country out in Montana when I was living there. And that I'm so proud of that video. And
I was actually looking at that yesterday for like just stills from it and stuff. And I was just like thinking about how that was made, and it was like made me exhausted.
I mean, I didn't even have to edit anything, but it was so, I mean, it was a zero budget for one thing, and it looks very expensive.
Yeah. I'm proud of that thing too.
Ashley was amazing. The lead girl in it. And it was just like horses in Montana. It's just so romantic.
Yeah.
But also, and I don't even know how that the older gal that's in it, we have her at the very end, and she's like a kind of a regional legend there. And Susan, that's right. It's such an awesome little like nod to her in that video. That it's like one of those things that nobody knows about who doesn't know her.
Right.
It's just like an homage to an ancient, an important personage of the area. But I thought that was really fun because one of the things that maybe if we drew a parallel to just filmmaking in general, a thing that exists in all film projects and really any project, but film projects especially, is limitations, usually, financial, time or otherwise. And there's always some boundary that you have to make this thing in. And the boundary for that video was like, well, you have all of this beautiful outside.
Yeah.
We have a couple of horses.
Yeah.
we have one horse we can get. Maybe we can get another horse.
Yeah.
I know this gal down the road.
Yeah.
And
well, you just living there, you kind of were doing scouting
like constantly as a way of life, yeah.
And you were like, there's this girl that works down here. I think she would be good for it. And then like, there's a guy, Noel, who like, he would be good. And so like, and it was like you were scouting.
Yeah.
And then you would send me either updates, because I moved in here and then you immediately left and went to Montana.
Like within a week.
Yeah. And I was like, well, all right. And then you kept sending me updates. And then I was like, you kept sending me photos. And I was just like, fuck, we have to go shoot something.
Yeah.
And I was poor and couldn't afford more than one bag. So that's why, that was another limitation, because I only brought my camera and like 2 lenses. It was my stills lens off of my camera that I would take off the body and put it on the thing. And like, it was like the lowest, like could not get any more like stripped down. And there were no lights. The only light was the computer screen.
Oh, that's right.
On that one, because we shot
a simulated fire.
Yeah. And
I mean, that was right. You kind of not match cutted it, but there's a scene in that video and it's like, I mean, it's a pretty ambitious video.
Oh, it was so ambitious for what we had.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a video that spans across all time epochs, and like certain characters recur and they represent the same person at different points in their life.
Right.
And it gives me shivers actually. And but that end scene, there's a scene
fire.
where the family's gathered around this fire, and we didn't have everybody at the same time. We had to go to Susan's house,
so we shot the fire with like the group that one night.
Yeah,
and then so we shot that all around. God, that time is like so vivid in I could tell you everything we talked about that night at the fire.
Yeah.
But the fire stuff we shot that night, and then later on we shot Ashley by the fire down by the river, which we should not have done because it was like high level fire warning in the area. Or like
it's definitely an illegal fire.
We made it by a creek. It was fine. We were there, but we made that one there. That was a different day. And then Susan's was not a real fire. It was like a computer screen in her backyard, and then we had to match all that to look the same.
Yeah.
So like that was a crazy
But that's on some level, that's what at least editing film is solving problems.
But you were like, is this going to work? And I was just like, uh-huh. And then in my head, I was like, I hope. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, there's a plug. Yeah. Everyone go check out Crow Country. It's on my website or on YouTube, and you can tell us how terrible we did or not. I think it's great. So, okay. There's one other story I just want to visit. This has nothing to do with filmmaking, but it's just one of the funniest things ever. And, which is when we were driving back, and, this is just like such a weird, perfect storm. That,
are you talking about on the day to the airport?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That placed you as the victim.
Kyle, have you heard this story? Oh boy. So Corby and I we stayed at this No Country for Old Men hotel
in Cody, Wyoming.
In Cody, Wyoming, and
then Sheridan, Wyoming.
Yeah, it was somewhere right outside of Laramie. But we were like, Corey was like, "Have you ever seen the grasslands?" At this time, he was like, "Oh, we got to see the grasslands. We got to take some photos."
Just back when I drove out to Montana, and in June, the grasslands it's incredible. It's like you're suddenly in Dances with Wolves, and it's just grass as far as the eye can see, and there's no houses. It's just really beautiful.
The photos looked amazing.
Yeah,
when we went this time, there was no grass
because it was the end of the summer, and it was all dead.
Yeah, it was all dead. So we went and took some photos of Corby out there of the little grass that we found.
Not terribly inspiring.
Yeah, and then we were like, well, time to go to the airport, and then. The plan was to get to Denver. Corby was going to drop his car off at a fan's house,
yeah.
And then we were going to Uber.
Because I was flying to
L.A.
That's right.
And so
we were flying different directions.
Yeah, I was coming back here. You were going to L.A. And so that was the plan, was to park the car there, go Uber to the airport, us fly our separate directions. And then like as soon as we were like we were like, well, time to go to the airport. And I was like, I have to go to the bathroom, like take a dump. And Corby was like, there's no time. We're so behind. And so
This is 3 hours to Denver.
So we get to the airport, or we're driving in, and I'm like, I have to go pretty bad. And then we drive all the way to the lady's house, and Corby's car runs out of gas in front of her house.
We coast to a stop in front of her house.
And so we have to get out and like football push this car into her driveway.
Wait, no. Before that, we like called the Uber because we were so close.
Behind.
We were behind. So we're calling the Uber. The Uber's set to arrive at 107.
Literally right as
we
get
coast. I run out of gas at 103 in front of the Uber's on its way. Cody is like holding his rear end and he's like running into the house.
And I was like,
and the people in the house have come out and they're like, you can't park there. You got to push the car around the back. So Cody has to turn around.
And like I'm bird dogging, trying to push this car into the driveway, and then we get it in there, and the Uber shows up, and we're just like, we gotta go. And so we hop in the Uber, and then we hit the worst traffic in the world all the way to the Denver airport.
And like, there was the only time in my life I've ever seen you mad at me. Like,
and we got to the Denver airport, and I was like, I didn't even say bye to Corby. I was just like, I just got out and ran, and then went into it, and I was just like, I'm gonna use the bathroom. And then I saw the line, the security line, and it's so big, and I was like, I have to get in line. So I get in line, and I get through security, and I'm like, I'll use it before I go to the gate. And I get to my gate, and they're literally like calling like the last. They're like, all right, last aboard.
Closing the door to the gate.
And I was like, oh, okay. And so I get on the plane, and I'm like, I'll use it in the air. And the turbulence from Denver to Kansas City is so bad that every time I try to get up, they were like, sir, stay down. And I was like, we're about to have an emergency. And so we finally land in Kansas City, and I, finally get to use the bathroom. But I held it for 4 states, basically. And then
you did.
God, the flight home, like it was like beautiful sunset all the way through. Like there was like football on. I was like, wow, this is nice.
You made it in the end. Thanks for sharing that. That was really fun. Okay, well, let's talk about one of the things as your roommate that I enjoyed and was dumbfounded by was how many films you watch. And
it's too many.
You watch a lot of films.
Yeah.
And you'll go and not just like let's watch all the Marvel movies from beginning to end, though I'm sure you've done that. But like, let's find an esoteric director and then watch his whole catalog.
I think I am a completionist, so like,
yeah,
I do like completing filmographies and all that.
And maybe this is an opportunity to talk about some of your bigger influences.
Oh man. Well, I mean, the movie thing, like, I mean, and I'll say this too, to counter that, is like, I was equally dumbfounded because whatever I do in movies is like you with books and, writing and all that, which was why, like, I used to read a lot, but like then whenever I got to like here and I was like, oh, I don't read a lot. It's like, I don't do really anything at all. So in that sense, like, I do think that like there was a true creative switch that happened in my life when I moved in here, because I do think that the creativity is like infectious. And I think that you're like the example of that, where it's like you're always doing something, and it's like, I think I thought that I was like being productive or being creative until I saw what that actually looked like. And I do think that was like the switch that happened whenever I moved in here, and I was like, oh, it's like, I do need to kick it into another gear. So wow. Thank you for that.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm surprised to hear those words. I do not feel that myself.
No, I mean, you're a true machine.
That's the highest praise that you could ever give any aspiring creative.
Because I think movies are not like, I enjoy watching movies, but it is a very like sluggish activity. Like, you're just like, you sit and receive. Yeah, you just sit and receive, and it's like, so like, while it is like, I think I try to find a way to make it to not feel lazy about doing it, because I do think that while you are like taking in like a way a story's told that isn't like traditional or like new like ways to tell a story or like performance, whatever it is that you're taking from a movie, like you're still I don't know what I'm trying to say. I always try to like counteract that by doing something that's not lazy.
It's like physically active or some kind of
Yeah.
Okay, I'll play devil's advocate with that, because I think that as somebody who I like to do stuff and make things, and I know I still have some kind of ability to sit still and like give myself over completely to something. And that's, for me, that is movies. I can sit and watch a movie and just like watch a movie. And I think that's really important. But I don't do it as a way of life. It's like a thing I do sometimes. And I think that part of my attraction to books is that you have to give yourself wholly to a book for it to do anything. You can't read without, like, it takes all of your attention in a way. But in that doing, it's actually active. So it like kind of scratches that itch for me, where I can kind of do both things. But I do hear you.
I think that's too like what you're talking about. Like a book, you do have to give yourself fully over to it, and you are like, it's engaging you in a different way than films are.
Well, you're the canvas too. You're the screen,
right?
You're the projectionist and the DP, and you make the pictures and you connect the threads of the story.
Right.
You do it all.
I think there's movies too that you have to like. I mean, there's so many movies that you have to like engage with to like get anything out.
No,
of.
totally.
And then but like I think a lot of like the main media right now though is like super passive. You can put it on in the background and just let it go.
Yeah.
And then you chime in every now and then.
Man, Travis, our mutual friend Travis, a director here in town, was telling me last week that he had a meeting with some executives about another project they're trying to work, and their comment was, it's not too screen enough.
Oh, God.
Meaning it's too high. It's like it requires attention.
Yes.
And what they want is something that you can just look up from your iPad, the thing that you're doing, checking Instagram, and note what's happening, which is really will cast you in a pit of bottomless despair, as any sort of creative. But I will say that maybe this is a nice segue too, because I want to talk about your film festival experience and just highs, lows, whatever. But having gone to a number of them last year for Morse Code, it was fun to meet creatives. It always is. And like you said earlier, it's like being around creative people is like stimulates your own, desire to do it, or your own like competitive spirit, or your own like empowering muscle. But I also went to a bunch of panels with different things, and like I went to South by Southwest and Sundance, and some of those were like high level panels with people that are known quantities, and man, the takes were grim. I think grimmer than normal.
Sure.
After the pandemic and the writers and actors strikes of last year, and this sort of like glut of movies and television. I was almost going to say content, but I'm just kind of like putting that word to bed, I think, eternally. There's just like so much being made, and the market sort of has been readjusting. Anyway, it's like movies, it's harder to make. It's always been hard to make. It's got really hard when they stopped making like $20 million budget movies.
Yeah.
And like then there was like an opportunity in television, and now it's like very difficult to get any TV signed. So it does come back to like why even try to do this? And I do have an answer to that, but I'd like to know how you feel about that, that question, and maybe the state of affairs as they are.
I feel pretty bleak about it. It's I don't feel, because I mean I went to the Regal down here the other day, and it just looked like we were watching a movie in a haunted house. Like it was like, it's just so empty, derelict,
cavernous,
and like not just empty of people, but just like empty of like a lot of the poster cases are empty. Like the concessions are like empty. It's just like they're taking it just seems like like it's just like going away.
I went to a movie 2 days ago there and felt exactly the same.
Yeah, it was like, oh man.
But Belcourt doesn't feel that way.
No, and see, like Belcourt is like those are the movies that are like will survive eventually, where it's just like these small like intentional movies that like are made by people, and like you have to engage with them and they engage back, and like it's like because I do think that ultimately people do want that. I think people are already feeling that too, where like the passive watching is getting to a point where like even like I was at home and I heard my uncle say about some show they were watching. I was like, how was that? And he was like, it's just the same as everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, it's just like, it's just the same thing. And like, I do think that there has been this thing of like, so much stuff has happened the past couple of years that people are just like, we just want to tune out and collect ourselves, because the pendulum always has to swing back. And it feels like, people are wanting to see something with intention.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, even though like these huge movies can just like keep being the same, and the budgets will balloon to $300 million, and then it's like they just keep getting bigger and bigger. But then like eventually it's already kind of happened with Marvel, where people are just like they're all the same.
Yeah,
like the bubble has to burst at some point. And I think it will come back where it's like people are just itching for something more original. Because I think I was talking to you about it, but like my dad, I asked him if he had seen this one movie that came out in the 90s, it was like a prestige picture that, and then he was like, oh yeah, I saw that. And I was like, you saw that? And he was like, yeah.
What movie?
I think it was like The English Patient or something. And I was like,
seen that.
And he was like, yeah, I saw that. And I was like, why did you watch it? He was like, I don't know. Someone said it was good. And he was like, yeah, and it was good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, that like that's not a thing that happens where like a movie that is like, that just everybody sees, that is like not out of like, it's a prestige picture, but it's like, cause now, I don't know. It's like every time I watch the Oscars or talk to my family about like the stuff that's nominated for the Oscars, they're just like, oh, we've never even heard of that. Or like, we don't even know. It's just like it's so separated now.
Yeah.
Where it's like there's just pockets of stuff that people will watch. And it's like, none of it is like part of a bigger thing, really.
Well, I mean, I think that technology has long been touted for its powers of decentralization and the resulting empowerment that might come from creators traditionally outside the normal means of making art. I increasingly feel like technology's real tribute to culture has been a bankruptcy of the means to do it, the jobs that are associated with it, and this new resulting obligation for any sort of creative person to be now not only the dreamer and the doer, but now their own label head or studio head, their own marketing person. And because there's now it's just like everybody's got the same access.
Yes.
And so, making a film is incredibly difficult, but making it marketing a film is maybe 10 times harder.
Oh,
and
sure.
For everybody.
And that's the thing too now, where it's just like their access is super high, which is great. But then it's like, then you go on any sort of streaming service or look at it, and there's just like a billion things to watch.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you even...
I felt the same way 10 years ago when Spotify happened. And it's like, this is so sad for all of us.
Yeah.
It's so sad because now anybody who wants to listen to music has access to all of the history of recorded music right now.
Yeah.
And it's all competing with itself. And there was a limit to that in times past. And I don't think that the creator has won in any of technology's developments.
No.
We just have to like deal with it. It's also weird too, is like with that, it's like a new inability for people to stay focused on one thing, which is what is required by movies. Hence the 2-screen demand. And you know, I will say that, like, for some reason I'm not very down about it all because it's always felt insane to do anything creative. It's like nobody ever tells you, any responsible adult in your life when you're growing up really does or maybe should encourage you to like pursue a life in the arts, because it is so fraught with failure and the likelihood of success is almost nil. And if you decided to do that anyway, well, then I think that you at some point have to make peace with the fact that you're doing it because you love it. Yeah. And that the actual work, the doing of the thing, is its own reward, and that whatever accolades might come from the outside probably have little meaning outside of their ability to provide the means to make the next thing that you want.
Sure.
And, you know, I always thought, like, I guess not a great person to tout or anything, but Woody Allen, I remember watching his bio years ago before he did all that bad stuff.
I love Woody Allen. His movies.
You kind of have a Shane Gillis quality to you. Do you know that? That's anyway. But he was talking about his very first picture they made. It cost $1 million and it made like $1.1 million. And he was just like, everybody was high fiving because it meant they would get to make another one. Yeah. And I thought that's a great standard. Like that's what I would like to, you know, like we've got this Morse code thing that we're doing, and you know, if somebody, like, all I want to do is be able to make another one. Sure. And okay, so there's that. And then I go like, wait a second, why? Because like making a movie is so hard.
It's so hard. Yeah.
It's really fun. The people side of it, the actual being on set and filming it, is really, I think, rewarding even when it's hard, because there's this teamwork feeling about it. And everyone's like, if you got a good crew and a good cast and people are at least, you know, moderately to heavily committed into seeing the thing through, then you're all in it together and that's fun. But that's like the high point, because then afterwards, if you're the director, you have this like lonely several months of sitting there and editing this thing. And then it's just like combing through footage and trying to carve this story out of what you've got, it's so hard. And it's not, I don't think that at the end of that, you ever feel like you did a great job. I think that you feel like I did the best with what I had. You know?
I can't remember who said this, but he was like, I hate making movies, but I love I love having had made movies. Yeah. Like, which is kind of like how I understand too, where it's like, where I'm on set and I'm like, this is my last day doing this. This is fucking awful. And then whenever I look back on it, I'm like, yeah.
You can't remember.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, oh yeah, that was rough. We really did it.
Yeah.
And I do think that like being on a film set is like, it is like a circus of like a bunch of misfit people who literally don't know anything else other than this one thing that is finally working. Yeah. At least that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh, cool. I'll just keep doing this. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't know how to do anything else. Yes. But I do know what you're saying. What is it that what keeps you going? And I don't know what that is.
I mean, on some level, there is some pleasure in it, right?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, for me too, it's like there's something kind of exciting about participating in the community of, even like the historical community of like creatives. For me, like it's exciting for me. Like the singer-songwriter side of me, I kind of trace this lineage that I put like Woody Guthrie at, and then Dylan, and then like there's also something like Lou Reed, Velvet Underground, and then Neil Young, and then Violent Femmes. This weird lineage of independent minds and hearts that created this confused expression of their own lives, and have the means to like make that with their, with their own instruments. And it's like, man, I'm that too. And like, there's something kind of exciting about being able to call yourself one of those, even though maybe nobody else is or whatever. And for film, the same thing,
And I think that the thing that going back to like the whole decentralizing thing where it's just like eventually, I mean, I think like where it's just like there is no like, which is good. There's no like one big like these are movies. We go to movies. Like movies will just become like a little tiny group of something. Like kind of like how or in terms of entertainment, it'll just become a thing because like young kids, they like YouTube, and it's like that's a whole different thing. And then other people are TikTok, and it's like that's a whole different thing. And then it's just like it's just going to be a part of this whole thing, and not like like the totemic thing.
Yeah, I mean, people decry the end of superstars or the end of blockbuster films or prestige pictures, and I think that the fact of the matter is that a music superstar is a phenomenon of just the last 50 years, and prior to human history, like there's no precedent whatsoever, and so like that's just a bubble in time, and art is art, and the expression of it will change, and the format and the distribution of it will always change. But like, I mean, there's some stuff I watch on TikTok. Like Andy Marie Tillman is here in town, and she's got this amazing following because she's like so entertaining. Yeah, and like the nuggets they're not 2 hours long, but it's still like people want to see that, and it is a human being independently creating art, right? And that's a success story as much as anything else to me.
I think it'll just remain the same. That like just like if it's undeniable, it'll find its way. Yeah, and which is also scary.
Truth. Okay, let's talk about the film festival experience. Congratulations on your latest short, Where the Bullets Go, and you've had quite a run. In fact, I think you're only in town today and tomorrow or something.
Today, and then I'm flying to Dallas tomorrow, and then to Boston, and. Yeah.
What's in Boston?
IFF Boston.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we'll be playing there, and then I come back and have surgery.
Oh, nice. Well, let's we'll leave those personal matters aside.
Yes.
We've already delved enough into the personal.
Yeah. Too many butt stories already.
Let me just ask you about this film because people can't see it right now because it's probably behind a paywall for the festival season. Yeah. But at some point, it'll be available one way or another, I imagine. And
on Vimeo.
Yes, if nothing else.
Yeah.
But more importantly, what inspired you to make that film, which I saw and really enjoyed?
Thanks. It's about a kid that he shoots at a bird and misses, and wonders where the bullet went, and so he goes to look for said bullet, and then hijinks ensue, but there's no hijinks. It's just like. Kind of becomes like a David Lynch kind of story. But yeah, that was, I was when I was like 8 years old or however old, 10 years old, I like we were target shooting in the backyard as one does in Kentucky. And I like shot just straight up in the air. And my dad turned around and he was like, "Why'd you do that?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he was like, "It's got to come down." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And so like for the week after, I was like looking at a newspaper and like looking in like watching the news and trying to see if somebody got hit by a bullet. And I was so nervous. And they didn't. And like I wrote the first half of that where the kid shoots and then goes to look. And I always knew that, well, I'm not going to spoil it, but like I wrote that first half like in 2017 or something, and I just never knew how to end it. And then last year I like figured out the ending, and it was just like a combination of this life event and then like another life event that I just like crammed together, and they just like fit together. And then I just made it a couple months later. And so, yeah.
It's one thing to write a 10 or 20 or 100-page script. It's just a whole other thing to dedicate yourself to the realization of it, casting and raising the money for it, and blocking the dates out. It's huge. Like producing pictures is no joke. Yeah. So what made you finally pull the trigger on that?
Well, that's a good question because I've been asking myself that question on another thing recently, but it's like I think it's just like you kind of know when it's done or like what it is. And like, I think that because I've made a bunch of shorts before where like I either shot it too fast, like the script wasn't there, or like resources weren't there, or whatever wasn't there. And it's like always been this thing of like, just like I should have waited, and like it didn't feel right to shoot it, but I shot it anyway. And I just had it in my head where it was like, if I ever do anything else again, like I would have to, like, I want to feel that it's ready. And with this one, it just like, it felt ready. Like as soon as I wrote this second half of it, and I was just like, yeah, this like makes total sense. And like, is the story that I want it to be. And it just felt, it just felt right. And then even in the editing, like it was one of those things where like, when I was editing it, usually like what you were saying, like you're just looking at all the stuff you shot and you're just like, I'm an idiot. I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I should get a real job. But like that one, I didn't. Like I just edited all the way through, and like all the hangups that I had about it, I just like didn't let them get
Stop
to me.
you.
Yeah. And I just like got through it. And yeah, I don't know. It felt right.
Amazing. And why I ask that is because I feel like one of the things that is so challenging to people who are even talented, and it affects writers different, because at the end of the day, it's like, did you write or did you not? But the filmmaker has a whole other set of challenges, which is like to make this thing and to raise the money for it. And I know a lot of really creative people that have gotten good at one aspect of the game and are now being paid to utilize their talents on other people's behalves. And this is a very common thing. I feel like for creative people, they get opportunity in a lane that's not like maybe adjacent to their own deal, and then they wake up 20 years later and they never did lent their own talents toward themselves. And so how can you speak to the challenge of carving time out from that lane of putting your talents in service of other things for your own work?
I mean, I do think that like that also came from that, where it was like feeling this wall of like realizing that all that to like, what I'll say about the work that shooting music videos and all this stuff, like it's fun, but like I've just done so many of them now that it's like I kind of need to do something else. And it's like I'm trying to find a way to word all this, but it's like I just hit a wall where I was like, I need to do something that's my own, and something that's not a music video, something that's narrative or what I want to do. Because if I don't do that, I will just implode. Because and
well, I mean, I think that you're tapping into something that's really commonly felt by a lot of creative people.
Because I do think that there is like the security is good of like doing something for somebody else, where it's like you're coming to this thing and hearing what it requires, and you're going to it instead of the project coming to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's how I feel about acting a lot.
Yes.
It's like really fun for me to solve a problem or perform a service on the part of somebody else's vision.
Yeah. And I think I like that about cinematography. But I think at a certain point I was like, God, but when am I going to get to do when are we going to get to flip? And I think I needed to do something like that. And
well, it's funny because it's like when you started out, just to bring this full circle, coffee shop job, head full of dreams, how to even connect these dots. And then you start doing it. And then you're one of the most in-demand cinematographers in town. Like you're busy. And, so you've realized that dream in a way. You've like made a living, but then at some point you're like, oh, now it's a job. Like I know how to do all of this. It's not like, and they're with it. Like there's something so rewarding about being good enough at something that you're rewarded remuneratively for that. And at the same time, it's like the dream is always something more than, it's always outside of any sort of security or it's like if you're lucky enough and cursed enough to have something that you want to say yourself, then I don't think anything short of that is ever going to be satisfying. And I'm saying that as myself because I noticed that like I'm like kind of busy right now with some other jobs, and it's great because we need the money, but I'm so annoyed because it's like in the way of like this.
Dude, that's all I want to do is like write and then like make those things that and like anytime there's like another job that comes along that I'm like, because I'm blessed to be able to do all that, you know, and like, and to even have a job that's not a real job. And like, but it's still every time they call and they're like, got another music video in a bar or in a field. And I'm just like, and they're like, it's always like, how do we make this one look different? And it's like,
you don't.
Yes. There's a ceiling. And, it's just like after a while, you're just like, man.
That's so funny because it's like, it doesn't matter what outlet it is. That exact conversation has been had in so many circles. I think about like the studio world. Tim, who we know, has participated in that a lot. And it's like, you can't make a country song. You can't make a contemporary country song sound that different. And that's like, it's antithetical to the pursuit in the first place.
And, you know, and that's how I feel too about like what's making what you're saying. Like, how did I know that I wanted to make this thing? Like, because like we could write a script in 30 seconds right now and then film it in a day and we have something. And it's like, is it going to be any good? Like, no. Like, and I think that a lot of my hangups too come along with like, if I write something, I'll be like, but does this even need to be made? Like, is this even a thing? Which is like in the world of content where it's just like keep churning it out. Like and there's no question of like, does this even need to be anything? Is like not a question that ever comes up. And like, I'm always just like really making sure that like, it's like for myself, it's like, do you even need to make this? Like, is this even worth, or is just getting it out enough to be like, now it's on the page. Now I can do something else. That's like the question too, that like, when I wrote it, it just like stuck with me too, where it was like, there felt like another step to it. And I was like, all right, I follow this now. So
that's great. That whatever that, the daemon that prompted you to write the story down was like, cool, not done with you yet.
Yeah.
Like there's another thing and you have to like honor that.
Because it does feel like stuff will latch on to you and find like its reality through you as like a vessel.
Yes.
And like, if it's not you, it'll be somebody else. So I always keep that in my mind too, where it's just like, if you feel it, then it's like, oh, I better do this now. So,
man, that's really inspiring for me to hear because I'm like, I wrote, the first third of this novel and then got the last 2 weeks I've fallen off the wagon because I was out of town and whatever. And it's like chewing on me in my sleep and stuff. I'm like, not, and at the same time, it's not like there's no pleasure in writing it, to be honest. Like once in a while, there's like one cool sentence in 700. I'm like, that was good. But most of the time I'm like, where am I going? I suck. And at the center of it though, it's like, this is a story I kind of dimly feel like I need to tell.
Sure.
And I guess that's all you've got. And then maybe all that matters is like, if there's that little kernel of something in the center of you that needs attention and is demanding that you do something, you either honor it or you don't. And if you don't, I think it really does go away. I think there's probably a lot of like seeds that still lay dormant in a lot of people because it's easier to not listen to it. There's less suffering in not listening to it. It's one less story in the world, and the world that's got way too many stories anyway. But there's like a certain person that's just like, well, I've got to honor this thing at my own peril. And that person is destined to suffer.
Oh, no, it is suffering. But I think also, too, like books, like writing an actual book and like, I mean, that's still one thing that I think requires, which I mean, you can do it in AI, but it's like not the normal person, because it feels like everybody kind of knows how to run a camera now. It's like my like everybody I know knows that like what the vernacular is for like cameras and like editing and stuff, because it's all like everybody's kind of doing it for like the internet. But it's like, I don't know, I still think that like writing a novel is still like such a mystery, because you actually have to like do it. And it's like, and I don't think anybody can just do it.
I don't think anybody can write. I mean, I put myself in that category. Like you can sit down and write, but it's very, very rare to meet somebody that's got like
Sure.
And that's almost anything. It's like even screenplays. Just coming back from this film festival, watching a bunch of movies. You're an exception. Oh, I thought you were getting indignant with me. Hey now.
Start finger wagging.
But like watching a bunch of movies, it's just like you can kind of see, oh, there's something that was cool. That's why this movie was made. There's like a little conceit.
Sure, yeah.
Hopefully you might get to see that. But it's just really difficult to come across something that's like, damn, that was formidable and well done, sir.
Yeah, no, and I guess what I was trying to say about, the other quote that I love about movies that is like, a good movie is just two good scenes and no bad ones. Yeah. Where it's just like, it is just like, which I mean, I always say I write all the time, but like, I don't think screenplay writing is real writing, because it's like, he walks to door, like just like that type of stuff. Like it's more blueprinty, but like the book that you're a writer, you know what I mean? Like you have like, you understand like something very like ethereal about writing that I think that not a lot of people have.
I don't know if that's true.
No, you do.
Okay, well, I don't want to get into an argument.
But that's what I'm talking about with like books, where it's just like, if you try to do it, like people are automatically going to be like, like, and if you don't have it, and there's a lot of stuff like that, but I still think books are like that to me, where it's just like, if you don't have it, people are just like, it's very easy for them to be like, you don't have it. And then it's like, you know, everybody edits like their TikToks and stuff. Like you can fake being like something like in that world, or like music too. Like you can just like, I don't know.
I do notice that like my feeling about writing, and the only criterion is that you have to love reading.
Yes.
You have to be a true fan of other people's writing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I encounter somebody who like wants to be a writer or something, but they don't have a serious relationship to reading. And it's like, you're never going to write. What do you think you're going to do? Like magically write an amazing book out of your own intuition? Like you're not. You can't sustain that kind of inventiveness across, I mean, probably across one page, much less 500.
That's how I feel about movies too, where it's like, just like people, which I mean, film's different, because there are jobs that are they're just like blue collar jobs basically. And it's like people doing a job. But then like a lot of people, there's like creative positions with people and it's like, they're like, I don't watch movies. And it's like, you know, you're making them.
Yeah.
Or like
you're
doing that.
Yeah.
So like, it's pretty, I don't know.
Well, that's just one more full circle and then we'll be done. But that is a testament to your own, sincerity about your pursuit, because when we were living together, I was just like, man, that guy watches so many movies, and you like take it seriously. You want to know the history of filmmaking. And there's a famous, Martin Scorsese quote about, or somebody else talking about them. It was just like, those guys, the heavies, can tell you how 500 movies work. They can tell you all of the beats and how it doesn't happen on accident if you want to be a great filmmaker or just a great storyteller. And one last thing too, I will say that I really have appreciated, and maybe is something that's confused me now in my present life about writing, is having read a number of scripts now. And I'm not saying I'm any kind of guy that's got a mastery of script reading, much less writing, but scripts are so efficient, and that's novels don't, because they don't they're not expensive to make, beyond the time, you can sort of meander in novels. And that's maybe part of the charm if you're a good writer. Like my favorite writers, I don't really care about the plot as much as I just want to live in their world. Yeah. And that's novel. That's the power of the novel to me.
Yeah, right.
But that's no such indulgence exists in screenwriting. And I think that every novelist who wants to tell a story that's going to reach normal people, who can like walk away from the book and tell somebody else what happens in the book, would do well to live in the world of scripts and stuff, because that really does, like, it's the elemental beats of a story that are what people take away. Like when people go to a movie they enjoy, they can immediately tell another person what happens in the movie and what it's about. And that's really great storytelling.
And that's, literature is like what you're just describing, where it's like maybe there's not a huge story, but it is just this world. And that's literature. And then one of my friends, I told him, cause I recently read a Carver novel, and I like blew through it. And I was like, man, I read this book so fast. Like it was so like,
Raymond Carver.
Yeah. Yeah. What we talk about when we talk about love. And I just blew through it. And he was like, well, that's because it's a short story. It's a bunch of short stories. And he's like, filmmakers are drawn to short stories. And I was like, he's like, because they are just like condensed and focused. And they're just that, like a script is, where it's just like, this is what happens. And I was like, yeah, I guess that is true. So like, I've been on a short story kick recently, just reading a bunch of shorts, but that's why too, like your book too, like short stories, I think you're drawn to that too, like this efficiency, but you also have that love for literature as well of like.
Yeah, I do. And I think the book, the collection of short stories that you read, and was like, the thing about me is that, I'm a little bit lazy. And I have, like many of us, a bit of a short attention span, or there's something about that. And so like you can write a short story in 2 days or a day even. I've written a lot of short stories in half an afternoon. And so you can that's really an exciting way to live. I write short stories still all the time, like for my newsletter. Yeah. I've forced myself to put a newsletter out once a month to like let the world know I'm alive. And I hate doing it. And the only reason why I do it is because I'm like, oh, well, I can write a short story. Sure. And it's like, I have so much fun doing it. Yeah. So there's some kind of clue there. Like short stories to me are just pure fun. Yeah. You can just like make people feel something, or make yourself feel something, and then like you can just talk about something that's really important to you, and it's like done. You don't have to put it all together and make an arc. And but I aspire to be a serious novelist, so we'll see what happens.
I'm excited for your novel.
Well, then you'll be the first to proofread it, sucker. Dude, thanks so much for coming over and talking. Yeah. I feel like we could talk for 2 hours. But we all got stuff to do. But yeah, man, best wishes for the rest of the film festival season with Thanks. Where the Bolts Go, and on your next projects, and let's go get a beer sometime.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for watching. Go ahead and click here to like and subscribe. You can click right there to watch another video, or click here to watch a playlist featuring the songs of the Morse Code Podcast. Okay, thank you very much.